Hey everybody, it's Charles, your hobby hero, coming at you with another video today. We're going to be talking about rumors about set 1 and 2 being out of print, as well as enchanted prices soaring. But first, before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down in the bottom corner. I do appreciate it. I do put out regular content about the hobbies that I love, with this channel being dedicated to the Lorcana card game. Now, you heard me correctly, and if you aren't aware, there have been rumors swirling about set 1 and set 2 being out of print. And in response to that, enchanted rares and some of the other foils in those sets have absolutely been exploding. So we're going to be taking a look at some of the actual evidence that we have, what is actually happening, some of the anecdotal evidence that is out there, so that you can best decide what moves it makes sense for you to make personally in regards to Chapter 1 and Rise of the Floodborn. I will lead off with saying that nothing has been confirmed by Ravensburger at this point in time, other than the fact that nothing has been confirmed. Now, when asked directly about the reprinting of set 1, they simply responded, if we are going to reprint set 1, we will make an official announcement on it. To which someone asked, well, then we're going to assume that since no announcement's been made, that there is no more set 1. And then another Ravensburger employee came in and said, we're not saying that, basically, just if we're going to do another print run, we will make an announcement about it. Now, there's a few things that we can take from this. They have not made an official announcement on another print run, which means they don't have one officially planned at this point in time. Ravensburger, if we can say anything about them, is they have been very forthcoming with their plans for the game, what they intend for the game, so that they can better moderate people's responses to those expectations, which is perfectly fine and welcome as a TCG community member. Now, to say they don't have one planned at this point in time is not saying that they won't go back and reprint one again, but at this point in time, it doesn't look like they're really focused on the past sets, but really focusing on the printing of set 3 and into the future past that point in time. Needless to say, people are kind of taking this information and running with it, and comments and questions are going around everywhere about whether or not set 1 is officially out of print. And again, I will say right out of the gates, there's going to be a lot of anecdotal evidence that is provided for these particular situations, and I would advise you to take all that evidence with a grain of salt. Now, I'm not saying ignore this evidence, because it is better to plan accordingly and be prepared for the possibility that set 1 is out of print versus to not plan accordingly and find yourself kind of holding the bag when all of a sudden there's an official announcement and you guys don't have what you need. I will say, from what I have seen so far, there's more evidence that supports that we may be done with set 1 and set 2 than there is evidence that supports that there is a further reprint coming. As for evidence that would suggest that the set 1 and set 2 are done, we did get a lot of set 1 product and a lot of set 2 product put out in those initial first 3 waves of set 1 and first 2 waves of set 2. So much so that a lot of this product sat on the shelves for a while and even dropped below MSRP on those individual products, so that stores could move it that had overestimated the demand that they were going to have for those products. Now, right on the heels of that kind of glut of inventory, I don't foresee them making an official announcement while there's still product out there that is sitting on the shelves about another reprint coming, because that is just going to cool that demand that much more. Now, having said that, we have a third set getting ready to come out, and once we get to that third set threshold, I don't think it's very likely that they go back to set 1 without some serious supply issues occurring. Now, that's not to say that they won't. Let's say that the competitive scene that's getting ready to launch up really just causes an explosion of growth, which makes those staples out of set 1 just absolutely astronomically high in price. I could see them going back and revisiting a possible reprint of that. Now, before you compare this to other games like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon, it's important to understand that a lot of those big companies own their own printing companies, that they can kind of go to print with whatever they want for however long they want, kind of on a whim and on the fly, whereas Ravensburger does not have that same access. They are renting out printing companies to make their projects. Those companies usually have backlogs of projects that they're printing out for months, if not years in advance. So making changes to those print runs is not as easy for a company like Ravensburger as it would be for one of those much larger, more established card games. I've seen that thrown around a couple of times, like, hey, they're a business. If they can print something and make money, why wouldn't they print something and make money? Well, the reality is, like, it's not that quick of a thing. It's not as simple as just kind of changing the PDF file to images from set 1 and switching the printers on to print that off for a while versus set 2. They've got to print more boxes. They have to print more packs. All that stuff has to happen if they're going to another print. And again, I don't see that happening unless it becomes a detriment to new players coming in. And at that point, they may revisit it. They may revisit some other options too, such as going and just reprinting specific cards and like gift sets, or having older cards showing up in future sets like we see in some games like Magic the Gathering. So all those things are on the table, but I think a full run on another print of set 1 at this point is pretty unlikely if they haven't made an announcement before set 3 drops. Another thing that we've been seeing is a lot of distributors are not currently taking orders for any additional set 1 or set 2 product. They don't have anything. They don't have open orders for it. That usually will be an indication that they don't have any more product coming. They want that stuff pre-sold as soon as possible. They don't want it sitting in their inventory or their warehouse just collecting dust. So the fact that, from what I've seen from the sources that I have and the individuals who have been posting online, again, anecdotal evidence, I just want to make sure that we're crystal clear on that, is that these distributors have cut off any future orders. And again, that's not to say that that means that they're out of print, but that is usually a good sign that there is not a future print that is coming. Now, those are really the two big indicators that we have right now. Again, outside of an official statement from Ravensburger, nothing is officially settled, but that information is out there. So make sure you keep that information in mind when you're making decisions on your purchases for set 1 and set 2. Really, the only thing that we have at this point in time to suggest that there will be another print run are people that are out there that are kind of misinterpreting Ravensburger's initial statement kind of back in, I think, August or September of last year, where they said that they really wanted their product to be available for basically anybody coming to the game at MSRP prices. That was their goal, and that we're going to print to that goal. And I do believe Ravensburger in that statement. They've done everything they can to make that a reality. But if your interpretation of that statement is that they're going to print set 1 in perpetuity so that set 1 is always at MSRP, set 2 is always at MSRP, that is just not the reality of the situation. It is an unrealistic expectation and not at all what I think the intent of that comment was put out there for. What I think we're going to see from set 3 going forward is plenty of inventory on release for stores to be selling and holding events with pricing and subsequent smaller waves of that product to restock the shelves. But going forward, I don't see there being that very small amount of supply with a huge amount of demand driving current product above MSRP, which is great and kind of the norm when it comes to TCGs. I would be very, very surprised if they were doing anything different than that. Again, I know people's go-to response to this is going to be, Pokemon has been printing, modern sets into the ground for years now. Again, Pokemon has the ability to do that. They have the capital to do that. That is not something that's within the realm of a company who does not own their printing presses, though. I would imagine that the expense associated with them rushing the second wave that we did get from first quarter of this year to the holiday season of last year was probably a very sizable cost to Ravensburger, and probably not something that they're going to do just to keep set 1 down at MSRP whenever it does start to spike. All right, so speaking of kind of spikes in prices, we're going to take a look at the Enchanted price spike here. If you're not familiar with this site, this is tcgplayer.com. They buy and sell a lot of singles. A very large number of singles get sold through here. So a lot of times the information and kind of the data that is stored on this site is used a lot of times. So kind of explain that as we go through it, as well as kind of some of the ways kind of people can manipulate those. So a lot of these have sold recently with prices spiking very, very quickly. Taking a look at Elsa here, for example, you have her sitting at 615. That's a lightly played. That's not even listed as a near mint. But we can see at the end of December here, this card was at $350. So in less than a month's time, it is nearly doubled in price, up to a $600 market price. But I mean, even looking at these recent solds, we got a $700 recent sold, $650, $620, $625. One came in as a light play again at $500, but like $650 to $700 on these recent solds. Now, there are a couple of different factors that could be coming into play with these Enchanted prices. I mean, as you can see, we've got, a lot of them that are moving up tremendously. One of those factors is something called a buyout, where either an individual or a group of individuals will target specific cards and just buy up all the available inventory within a single price range that they're looking for, only leaving like the most expensive copies of cards available online, with the intent that once all of the cards have been purchased, that it'll kind of reset to that new higher mark and they'll be able to resell at a profit. So for that Elsa, for example, somebody comes in and buys 10 to 15 listings at that $350 price point, only leaving the listings that are, $500 or more up. And then it kind of resets that listing when the only thing people can find that are willing to sell are those cards. Now, it won't work all the time, and it's fairly expensive and risky to do for those individuals. What you'll have is things will start to retrace, but not always retracing all the way. So Simba's a good example here. Simba was like a $90 card at his bottom here. I mean, almost $80 towards the end of December here. And really going into the middle of January, $90. And then he's selling now at about $150. But he was listed, the low listing price on them at one point in time was like $420 was the lowest one that you could find. So if you were in a pinch and you really wanted that Simba, you logged on to TCG Player, one of the largest singles markets that were out there, you're going to see one for $200 or $420. Now, they didn't end up selling for that high, but as you can see, there were several listings here at that like $210 to $215 mark, which again is more than twice its low just a few weeks before. So even though the buyout, didn't successfully bring it up to that new high ceiling, it has brought it up considerably and moved the market price on completed sold listings up from the $90 mark that we saw, just in the middle of January, up a full $55 basically to the end of January, which is a pretty big movement for any one particular card. Now, outside of just the market kind of manipulation of a buyout and then trickle them out, you also have that FOMO kicking in with rumors swirling about the first set and second set being out of print, and these being kind of the premier collectible cards out of those two sets. So if you're an individual that's out there, you've been picking these up, you've either been opening packs and trading and kind of doing your hustle for this, that, and the other, and then all of a sudden you hear that, hey, the print run on set 1 and set 2 is either very, very limited or completely done. That drives all those people who may still be missing some of the key pieces in these collections to go out and purchase them. You combine that with some people targeting these cards to drive those prices up and lowering the available amount of inventory that's out there. And you have like this perfect storm of people who are just foaming out at the mouth with FOMO, combined with this depleted supply and an increase in price. And you start getting all these completed transactions, which really sets a new market, maybe not permanently, but at least in the short term. Now, what we did see with the increase in all these prices is the number of listings have rebounded on a lot of these back up to close to the 20s. And that doesn't maybe sound like a lot, but whenever you're dealing with a single card, that's going for $600, having 18 available on TCG Player is a good number of them. But as you can see, some of them haven't really rebounded very well, with cards like Tinkerbell with only 7 listings available. With most of the other ones hovering around the 20 mark. Aladdin's a little lower with only 13 available ones on there. So as more listings go out, which they will with prices going up higher, it's going to motivate more people who may have been sitting on them to sell them. If you had an Elsa and you're like, it's worth more than $350 to me, I'm going to hold on to it. And then now you're saying, well, it's not worth more than $650 to me. You're much more motivated to sell and list those cards, which will start a new kind of race to the bottom. As long as we have this number of listings, we can continue to see maybe these prices start to stabilize and even start to trend downward. Stitch is a good example here. I know he was selling for over $300 for a while there at these new prices. $325, there's a $300, there's a $325, a $300. Lots of them right around the $300. But we're starting to see him kind of trickle back down. We've got a near mint listed at $280 right now. And then let's see. There's only one copy listed at that price, and then it jumps back up to those $300, and the lowest verified almost $340 at that point. So still up there quite a bit. But again, with this number of listings, I think we can expect to see the prices to kind of cool off. Unless, again, another official announcement comes from Ravensburger to let us know that they are indeed done, then we could see another rush of people going out there for FOMO. So I would say if you haven't purchased any of these enchanteds yet that you were looking for, and we can look at Rise of the Floodborn enchanteds in here as well. Cinderella has jumped up. I think the only other real big mover has been a couple of these are hovering around their market price still. They haven't moved much. I think the Arthur jumped up a good amount. Set 2, not as impacted as Set 1. Hercules is seeing some more play right now, so it's probably part of the reason for his movement, combined with the other items that we just listed. But yeah, if you haven't gotten any of them at this point, I would say give it maybe a week or maybe possibly even 2 weeks. If they haven't made an official announcement by the time people's money kind of switches over to Into the Inklands, I think you can expect to see some of these prices drop even further. I wouldn't wait much longer than after the release of Into the Inklands. If there have been no official announcements by then, I would imagine a week or two after the release, people are going to start to kind of put 2 and 2 together and be like, hey, we're 2 weeks into the release of Into the Inklands. We've gotten a mass market release coming up for Into the Inklands, and we've still not heard anything about more Set 1 or Set 2. I haven't seen any at Target in 3 weeks, and that FOMO is going to start to kick back in. I think we're going to start to see these prices and inventory kind of prices start to go back up and inventory to start to dwindle again. So if there's still any more out there that you're needing to, I wouldn't put it much past that. I don't think I'd be a buyer really at any of these current prices. Maybe some of the ones where, again, they didn't separate too far from their market price. Your Snow White, your Alice, Set 1, possibly like Genie or the Artful Rogue. Mickey Mouse, you can probably still find them for close to their market prices from a week or two ago. But I would definitely stay away from Elsa, which is unfortunate because she's still one that I need for my set. Unless you're trading other inflated enchanteds for the inflated enchanteds, I think I would just stay away from any deal on purchasing these right now. And again, that's to say without any other updates coming from Ravensburger. Now, I do lean more towards these being a buyout over just pure organic market growth. And a lot of that's because if it was just pure organic market growth, I think we would have seen a bigger movement in the sealed product, and we really haven't seen it. It has started to go up, but you can still find packs. I mean, here's a box at $200 for first set. Again, it's been trending up slowly, but honestly, a little bit of a downturn even now. It popped up over 200, but back down under 200. So it's still trending down and not tremendously over MSRP, especially when you consider shipping is included in this $200 price point. Product like let's get back to just set one. Product like the gift sets are basically at MSRP, as this has shipping included as well. The Trove, just kind of being that oddity out there, it just continues to go up, despite the fact that, it's a limited print run, but so was the first chapter gift set. I'm not sure why there's the huge disparity. I think there is a group of people that are out there that like to collect, sealed product, and this is just the one they latched onto from Wave 1, with booster boxes having multiple reprints, and the collector box down here just being, generally a less desirable product. They just kind of latched on to this particular limited release box and just decided to hold on to those for the price increase. But we've also not seen a huge movement in the singles markets. So if you give like a Rapunzel here, a very big staple all the way through set 1 and set 2. She stayed pretty average through here. She's ticking up a little bit, nothing tremendous in her movement. The Maleficent, same story. This card's a staple in a lot of the Ruby Amethyst decks that are going around. Not a lot of movement here. We have seen the foil prices that have been climbing on some of these from the peak, from the dip in December. They've almost doubled on this one. This is honestly about where they were at whenever I had to pick up mine. So I was surprised that they got this close. You got to look at, you got a $31 versus $41 market price here. Under $10 difference between the two, which is crazy to me that it was ever that low. But now kind of separating to more of what I would expect to see, which is about twice the price of a non-foil. But even like Belle, who's seen a lot more play here lately with the resist decks, we're seeing a steady climb in her price, but honestly, that's probably more of a correspondence with the play she's seeing more so than any kind of print conditions. So that's why I think the movement we're seeing in the enchanteds right now is more the product of a targeted buyout versus just that organic growth of individuals who are really worried about print 1 being out of stock. Now, that's not to say that a buyout doesn't effectively increase the price of these cards. If I was selling an Elsa Spirit of Winter right now, Enchanted, I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I know the price is inflated because of a buyout, so I'm going to list it at $350 from 2.5 weeks ago. I'm not going to do that, and if I'm not going to do that, I don't think it's very reasonable to expect other people to do that either. I will just say, if you are looking to purchase, give it some time. Don't get caught up in the FOMO, and make sure you're making the decision based on all the facts available to you, not just looking at TCG Player and being like, oh, hey, that's the market price. That must be what they're actually worth, because you know what that number means. So do the people who are out there that are trying to manipulate that number and drive those prices up. So there you guys have it. There are my thoughts on kind of the future of Set 1 and Set 2, as well as kind of what's going on with these enchanted prices that we see right now. I would love to hear your insight and anecdotal evidence down in the comments section as well. And until next time, guys, Hobby Hero out.